Many of us who live with teenagers, work with teenagers, clearly know that teenagers can be moody. Well, what role do hormones play in teens in affecting their mental health? That's the subject of today's video, so stay tuned for that. All right, so we know hormones impact emotions of teenagers. Now, what hormones? And cortisol in particular, what does that do to teenagers? Those are two things we definitely want to be talking about. And then what's normal and what would be something that should be a warning sign? And how can parents navigate this road? And when would it be time to seek professional help? Well, all that we'll be covering in this video. All right, we need to talk about the two main hormones that hit teenagers hard. It's not just about physical development and the sexual maturity. It's about the emotional changes that are going on with the teens. So testosterone and estrogen. Testosterone, the male hormone that's turning boys into men, is also making them more emotionally reactive and aggressive, right? It is an aggression hormone for young teenagers. There's one reason why it's often been said that an untamed young male is one of the most dangerous forces on earth, because if that's not channeled in the right way, it can lead to higher crime rates and the whole warrior kind of mentality, all that, if it's not properly channeled. For young women, estrogen makes them more emotionally sensitive. So it's not only changing their body and all the things that come with that, but emotionally, they're much more reactive and prone to get depressed. So if we think about teenagers and we think about some of the moods, those are some of the issues that we need to understand that's going on with them, because the hormones create emotional changes as well as physical changes. We've talked about estrogen and testosterone. We do need to talk about cortisol. Cortisol, the stress hormone, that gets increased in teenagers because of the changes they're going through, activates the whole system of the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, the whole structure, the brain and hormone development, all that creates more stress, which escalates the amount of cortisol. So there's been quite a bit of research that shows that teenagers produce more cortisol when they're under stress than adults do. All right, so teenagers are under stress because of all that's going on. That increases their reactivity and their whole emotional dynamics. As somebody who worked with middle school students primarily for 30 years, I'm right in the middle of it. And I'm also working with kids who have a lot of stuff, technical term, stuff going on in their lives outside of that, all that's going on. So they had real challenges dealing with school, dealing with life. And inevitably, my classes were almost all boys. But when we did have females, and when we had a fair number of females, the reaction to stress is completely different. All right? The young ladies are far more emotionally reactive, and they're far more sensitive to little slights, and they're far more likely to kind of go within and get real snippety and talk behind somebody else's back. The boys would be much more likely to act out, to act more aggressively, to show those anger outbursts. All that is typical for boys and girls. It's exactly what we were just talking about with the increased levels of cortisol and the other hormones. If teenagers are moody by nature because of what's going on hormonally, as it's a natural part of their development, how do we know the difference between what's normal and what isn't normal? Well, American Psychological Association will say if a teenager is going through an extended period of things like sadness, depression, hopelessness, 2 weeks or more, then that's a warning sign. If it begins to interfere with their daily ability to be normal, then that is also a warning sign. So are they withdrawing? Are they beginning to like say, no, I don't want to do that? They used to want to do things like that. Those are that interference with normal activities, grades deteriorating, uh, maybe social tension. So you put all that together, then it's time to kind of like, all right, let's figure out what we can do. Let's figure out what's going on. Those are the two major warning signs that it is something deeper than just hormonal changes. I can give you a couple different examples from my years working with teenagers. Both students I'm going to talk about had attendance problems, right? So when they came into our program, attendance was an issue. That means not only showing up, but also if they did show up, they weren't attending to what they had to do, right? So they would withdraw, they weren't interacting, and they were reporting persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. Those are the warning signs. That was what the school was seeing. That's why they're having conversation with parents. That's why they're contemplating putting them into the programs I ran, because of these persistent experiences that were going on for more than 2 weeks and could be rather dramatic, as well as their reactivity. That was like, all right, we now have a problem. This isn't just a mood swing. This isn't just a student being moody in class, or issue at recess or something. This is deeper than that. What do we do about this as parents, as educators, as leaders, anybody working with teens? Large part of this is developing open communication, letting them know, making sure they understand what's going to be happening to their bodies and emotionally, and then supporting them emotionally. When teenagers, lots of research is showing this, that when teenagers are feeling that connection, that support from their parents and adults, but their parents in particular, then they gain more resilience and social regulation. So let me then talk about those two students and what we did. Part of this is building relationships with them, getting them connected, making them feel connected at school. One of the things about them staying at home was they were feeling connected there. And there is a little bit of a difference between just that feeling connected at home and school. So we need to make sure they could feel supported at school as well. With a close-knit grouping in this program that we ran, that was one of the things we did well. We helped them begin to feel connected and connecting with other peers, a safe place. And with that, their attendance began to increase quite dramatically. And with the attendance coming in every day, they were also beginning able to attend more within the classes that they attended and within our program. And with that connection with other peers, it just kind of increased an upward cycle. So that's what we did in our program, and parents can do that same sort of thing, help them make those support, help them get the connection, listen, communicate. Those are some of the biggest things that parents can do to help their teenagers go through this time frame. It's all about mindset. It's all about helping them shift that mindset. Just come to the end of another video. Important topic. Really hope you took something from this to kind of understand what might be normal for teenagers in terms of mood swings and all that versus maybe a more serious mental health issue. I, as always, encourage you to subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. In particular, you might be interested in how does social life impact the mental health of your teenager. So check that video out today, and I'll see you in another one.